Welcome to Hive EcoSystems. This is the aloes farm. The landscape around you here was Fisher Thicket. It was so dense that you can't walk through this. Black rhino and kudu might get their way through here, but for a person to walk through the stuff was always impossible. When we introduced livestock in here, it's mostly goats and later on some cattle and sheep, they open up this whole landscape and they eat in a tree that's 1,000 years old that they look like this. And a lot of them couldn't handle that pressure. So we converted a dense thicket into an open, almost charoid landscape. They brought in all sorts of other animals, still South African animals, but we call them extralimital. They didn't occur in this area. And by doing so, you actually didn't do this area any favors. You actually promoted further degradation in this landscape. We removed all the extralimital game and we actively started to propagate spekboom to be able to replant them back into the field.
So how we get all the cuttings for our nursery is just sourced on this very farm. There are areas of the farm that are intact spekboom thicket. Not the whole entire farm has been decimated. And we generally go to these areas to harvest our cuttings. It all works on solar power, so everything is green.
You can see this tree tends to grow quite tall, but eland and kudu, they top it at that sort of height. And then you force your plant to go sideways. By growing sideways, they make new roots and they grow out again from there. So they're actually growing bigger and bigger as time goes by. We're not only planting spekboom, we also are propagating in our nursery quite a few different species of the indigenous trees that occur along our riparian areas, because we want to do the right thing. We want to promote biodiversity. We're using spekboom as the ecological driver to help us with getting some of the natural functionality back of the landscape. And spekboom does a great job in that respect. But we're also going to actively plant other species, especially in the riparian areas. We also now involve living lands to also come and help and look at how can we restore some of the erosion problems we got on this property. Obviously, the planting of a lot of plants will help with addressing the erosion, but there's so much more you can do to stop the unnecessary loss of sediment out of the system. Currently, all our river systems, our riparian areas, are conduits for sediment. They're not rivers anymore. So we want to build up that sediment and hold that back in the landscape, but also holding the water back, so the water can then filter out of the system over a much longer period of time. One must remember that this part of the world is fairly dry. At the moment, the rainfall in this part of the world, you usually get thunderstorms and say 30 or 40 millimeters at a time in half an hour. So your runoff is fast. It's always loaded with sediment. It's brown water flowing out of these areas. And that water carries sediment that ends up in our big storage dams. If we can start restoring these catchments along here, we hold back that sediment and the topsoil back in the landscape, which is what the plants need. So that's the holistic approach here, is to try and get this whole area back to the more natural state than it used to be. So we're using the carbon market as the revenue part of the business. How the carbon market works actually is if you can prove and measure what amount of carbon you take out of the atmosphere and convert into plant material. And that's exactly what we've done here. So in 5 years' time, we will do a re-evaluation and determine what was the accumulated carbon since we started work here. I can prove additionality. It's because I remove all the extralimital game, I plant so many million plants in the veld, and this is the accumulated biomass that grows over the last 5 years.
So currently our project is scattered over 20,000 acres or 8,300 hectares of land, and we believe we can expand that to millions of hectares of land in the Eastern Cape. So that is how much land is degraded and needs to be restored.
With this opportunity, and it's really a good opportunity that we've got here, that we can do this fantastic work and that we can restore big chunks of land in the landscape to bring the natural environment back and to get your ecological services back. Imagine having running rivers again with clean water and beautiful riparian vegetation. And I hope to see that in my lifetime still on this property, that we can get a functioning natural thicket biome back. Hopefully before I die, I will see what will happen on this farm in the next 30 years, which will be fantastic in 30 years' time to say, well, I had a part in that.